Okay, I just wanted to go over a couple of quick things about my Kyosho Rowdy Baja. I believe it's from 1983. And in another video, I was just comparing the shocks to the OEM shocks, which are extremely expensive. So I went ahead and bought 2 packs of 4. You probably could buy them in packs of 2 and then just do it that way. But so there's 4 in the back, obviously, 2 in the front, and the lengths are very, very close to the stock. The diameters are very close. The look is sort of close. I'm not too happy about the red. It's sort of more of a much more faded red. You could probably take the anodized coating off, polish them up, and then spray them with the clear like I mentioned in another video to give you that, I guess, a truer Kyosho anodized red look. Or I guess you could do it the real way and anodize it red. But that's kind of a lot of hassle for me, and I don't want to buy all that equipment to do that. But one thing I did want to note about these shocks is the quality of them is not that great. They do leak a little bit, but bigger than that are the eyelets where they mount. Have a lot of play. You're going to hear it click. Oh, that's the roll cage. Hold on. You listen carefully, you could probably hear that. What you're hearing is the ball where it's mounted is really not tight against the shock body itself. So there's quite a bit of play in that. So for a shelfer, this is fine. My purpose is most of my cars sit on the shelf after they get restored. If I ever go to sell them, let the next person decide if they want to run them or not. I have cars that I do run, but I just really prefer not to run vintage cars. There's a lot of hours in restoring some of these cars. A chance for a mishap. I'm just not ready to give that up and have to try to rebuild again something that's maybe 40 years old. At any rate, so quick tour of the car. The not so keen-eyed and maybe keen-eyed will notice that the driver is different. This is what it comes with. I'll try to show it to you. This is what you would expect if you got one that came with the cover. I wanted something a little more modern type of feel. This guy did a great job, whoever did this. So props to you. I don't know who made this one. They got the little driver in there, his head. They left it clear for the visor. That's a proper job. But at any rate, the head comes from, what we did was, I'll see if I can move it a little closer for you to see. Give you a better idea. That head will fit on there pretty well. You're going to have a little gap, right? Let me get my workout today. Right over here, you're going to end up with a little gap. What I did was I trimmed up some Lexan, glued it in there with some clear glue, those non-hazing types that you use for canopies on plastic models. That seemed to work pretty well. So that's what we did there. Now to get that look of that helmet though, you had to carve it out. There's a fair amount of work involved with that as well. Let me show you how that starts out. That starts out with one of these. I forget what car this is from, but if you do an internet search, I bought this a while ago. And basically carve out, there's going to be a lot of plastic inside this little guy. And one thing I would recommend that I messed up on when I did it is, if you go this route, leave yourself this area right here so it'll give you a place to screw in if you want to put the visor in. Well, not this visor, that's just part of the helmet, but if you want to make a visor, I think it will look a lot nicer. He's going to probably get a lot of sand in his eyes like that riding around, but okay, so let's go back to the tour of the car. Oh, one last thing I want to mention about this. This driver figure, if you cut him away, obviously from his passenger, because we don't have a two-seater over there, this will fit in there. I did not want to disrupt the body so much, but if you were to cut that clear part, the upper body on that, and cut that driver out and put this guy in, it looked like it was going to work. So, but I was still happy with that helmet, the way it made the driver look. So I decided to leave that alone rather than complicate things even more. So, okay, back to the mods. A couple other things to note, what might be noticeably different to some who are familiar with this car. This shock mount and this plate, and then the plate front and back, that's been custom made. It's not terribly difficult if you have some basic metalworking skills. What I did was I just basically followed the template of the stock pieces, which I did have. It might be difficult to do if you do not have those pieces. Sometimes people buy cars and restore them and they don't have everything. So then it might be a little trickier. But in this case, basically this is very similar to what the factory is, but it's bigger front to back. So if you're, like I say, if you're familiar with the car, you'll know that. But the reason being, what we wanted to do here by making this bigger front to back, let me see if I can tilt it up and show you. What I wanted to do is have this little fuel filler up here. Oh, pop that up. I don't know how much you can really see it. This is a marine filler, remote filler. So it would be nice. Mine is not set up that way. You can kind of see the, I believe that's like a helicopter tank, a vintage helicopter tank, because I did not have the stock tank for this. It wasn't sold to me with it. But it would be nice if you had welding skills, or you might be able to seal this and actually make this piece the tank. But this is just basically a remote filler for the tank down here, because with the factory, I believe what they had was the filler was right here. I don't know if you can make that out. Yeah, you can make it out. Was right there. It says you had to have like a fuel bottle with a tip on it, like a neck, and then it would go right down in there and you'd fill it that way. But that seems like awfully messy and risky. Again, I'm not going to run it, but I like to have it set up so that if you decide to run it, it will be problem free, less stress. So at any rate, so if you were going to use this, you'd pop this open, fill it there, tube goes down into the tank as normal. Only other couple of different things that this car has: the cage is mounted lower to give a more streamlined look. If you were to compare this one back to back to one that hasn't been modified, the cage rides up quite a bit higher, probably about, I'll try to put my finger on how much I cut off. I cut off probably about from here to here. Obviously, it used to be down here somewhere where my fingertip is. So this whole thing used to be up higher. I just wanted a little lower slung look for this. Cutting up an old car like this, I know that people may cringe. Oh, don't do that. But really what I'm after is a slightly sleeker profile. This particular car looked slightly bulky to me, so I wanted to improve on that. The next other different thing is to mount these shock towers to the top of the frame rail instead of the bottom. Structurally, I don't think it makes much difference. It probably is better having it on the bottom. I did this so that the shock mount top would align itself with the roll cage a bit better. So it just makes a better profile in my opinion. So those things in mind, I'll spin the car around, I'll show you the other side. Let me give you the back. This is vintage airplane muffler. I don't know for what size. I bought that a while ago because I thought it matched up real nice with this car. There is a tricky situation if you were to find something like that and wanted to use it. I'll try to bring this closer and see if you can see the spacer that's involved. Right where I'm wiggling my finger, you'll see a block of aluminum right there. Basically, you'll see that that's required because we need to create an angle and a spacer outwards to clear this top bar and to clear this back bar. So basically, you're coming out and down a little bit. So if you want to do that, you're going to have to make yourself something like that. Basically, it's a block of aluminum that's cut out. They make all kinds of spacers for nitro motors, but I don't think you'll find one that has the exact angle you're going to want that's going to make it look the way I thought it should. I'll spin this around the rest of the way so you'll get an idea of how it is. And I think it's a pretty good match for everything. So I was pretty happy about the way that came out. The only other thing that I did that was different was order the radio box. This one did come with the radio box. I wasn't sure if I wanted to paint the radio box the body color. That's still up in the air if I do ever get around to painting this thing. And made a carbon fiber. I'll try to raise this up. You can see just a carbon fiber base for that box to give it a little more rigidity where you mount the servos, because I don't think that's going to be rigid enough, quite frankly. I have not set up the linkages yet, obviously, or I try to explain a little bit about that too. And that about wraps it up. These cars are pretty nice. They don't really make anything like it anymore, so I think they're worth saving. If you have one, you know, I think it's worth it to put in the time. The one heads up that I would say is just, you know, try to buy them as complete as possible, because if it's missing parts, it's probably why somebody gave up on it. If you have an ability to make or create 3D parts, you know, all the better. Obviously, it'd be a little more complicated to get involved with the making metal parts for them. But anyway, I don't want to ramble on about that. The one last thing that I wanted to mention about these cars, when you go to set this up, my kit had terrible Swiss cheese mounts back here. It looked like somebody either did multiple motors or wasn't sure exactly where to drill their holes, and they just over drilled them, drilled extra holes. So I made some new brackets. I think you can see them there. Just time, patience, and accuracy. That's what I could really stress about doing something like that. It's not a complicated thing to make some L-shaped brackets. I'm not trying to sell it as such. Just that the main thing about that with this particular car is the alignment of the engine to the gearbox. You want to make sure that it's aligned with it in all the dimensions. All the axes, I suppose I should say. At any rate, so basically inline this way when you're looking at it from the side, inline this way. Basically, you want it to be facing dead forward into the gearbox. And you'll know that you're dead forward when this flywheel spins nice and free, because your clutch is not rubbing against the bell on that. That's about all the advice I could give about this car. Oh, one last thing. On the bottoms here, I just used different size. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it. I use different size ends. You see it's leaking. It's terrible shocks. The ends here are just different lengths because of the droop of the arm here. It comes down at an angle, so your rear one is going to be longer than your front one. And that's basically all that's done, so that we could keep this aligned here and still maintain the angle down here. Alright, that about wraps this up. I hope somebody somewhere finds it helpful. Sorry about it taking so long to give any kind of updates for my 2 subscribers, right? Anyway, alright, take care. Hope you enjoyed.